Hi, I'm Dr. Andrea Stover, licensed marriage and family therapist, and you're listening to the Modern Day Romantic Podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Today is the first episode in a series that I am doing on love at first sight. So I thought it would be kind of cool to do a series on this topic because I wanted to come at it from different angles and maybe explore what this could be. I know if you're a romantic that this is woven into the fabric of your DNA. Just this idea that you can crash into someone and see them for the first time, but really wait a second. It's like, I've known you my whole life. And automatically have a rapport, a comfortability, maybe even a felt sense or a knowing like, oh, this is it. You know, this is my person. You are my soulmate, these types of things. So I wanted to look at it from a couple different lenses. I'm not sure exactly how many episodes this will turn into, but I wanted to do a series just to do it justice. So today, the first theory or explanation that I want to explore, I feel like I need to preface because I know it's probably controversial for some that will be listening to this, and just need to do my disclaimer that my intention is never, ever, ever to make anyone uncomfortable or say this is the one and only way something is. We're really just looking at this as a possibility. So I hope this doesn't offend anyone, and I apologize if it does. Here we go. Okay, enough apologizing. I want to look at the theory of reincarnation. I want to look to see, so often in the stories and big coming together in movies. And I know people that this has been their experience where they feel like the person I just met, I've known from a past life, and we are just continuing our journey together in this life. And that's why I feel so comfortable with them, is because this idea that we have been born before, that we've lived lives prior to the one that we're living in this moment, in this life here and now, and that history carries forward. So there's a lot of research out there on this, and I'm going to come at it more from that probably. Part of the reason I chose to go, I went to the University of West Georgia for my PhD, and this kind of larger umbrella of the PhD, it was called Consciousness and Society. But we got to study all sorts of things. So there was a transpersonal component to the program, and we had classes entitled Ghosts or the Mind-Body Connection, and really got to look at cool things that I don't think a lot of people probably get to look at, from this research academic-based lens. So, okay, to dive in. So reincarnation, I wanted to name a couple of interesting people that have shed some light and kind of really brought this more into the mainstream in American society. And in doing so, I also want to name that several world religions believe in reincarnation. Like, this is part of their worldview. So here in America, that's where I live. I know not everyone is from America that's listening to this. But here in America, it's very Christian based. And so within the Christian religion, as it stands today, there is no belief in reincarnation, at least not that I'm aware of. So that's why talking about this feels kind of taboo to me in America. I'm putting myself out there like this, but here we go. Okay, so I wanted to start with this recent Pew Research poll that I found that said that a third of Americans actually believe in reincarnation, and that the numbers were higher in younger people. So more younger people believe in reincarnation. And so I think that this is percolating throughout our society and is a really valid perspective to explore, especially for romantics when we're looking at how reincarnation gets paired with love at first sight. So I want to talk about, some of you may have already heard of Edgar Cayce. He is known as the sleeping prophet or the father of holistic medicine. He was a very interesting man who was born and raised in Kentucky, I believe. And uh, early on in his life, he started having these kind of spiritual, maybe mediumistic experiences. But what he really was known for was putting himself into trance and tapping into what he would call universal consciousness and being able to have someone he was doing a reading for or sitting with have a question, and in asking him the question when he was in contact with universal consciousness, he was able to give them information about their ailments, about their relationships, and a lot of it had to do with this um, idea of past lives. So, hey, this is something that's carried forward, or this is something that's in your history here, and that's why it's coming back up. One of the things that he talked about and that a lot of reincarnationists talk about is karma. So the idea is throughout our different lives that we've lived, we accumulate karma. And karma, I think, has a bad connotation with it oftentimes, but it doesn't have to. It's just like it can be gifts that are bestowed upon us as a result of good deeds or kind actions, just as much as, hey, these are some hard lessons that you need to learn or have to go through to master, as you make your way through your lives. And ultimately, this kind of goal of self-development and really growing into the fullest potential or realization of you as a person and an individual into your selfhood. So, an important point I think to make about karma, at least in the way that Edgar Cayce would talk about it, would be it's not so much, he didn't see it that, the relationship between two people had karma. He saw it as each individual has their own karma to work through. I think this is a really interesting point for anyone who subscribes to reincarnation and applies it to romantic relationships, because I've heard this so many times from people. Oh, well, we just came together because we have, past life business that we need to sort out together. We didn't get this done last lifetime, and so here we go. It's kind of something to that effect. And what this subtle difference there that Cayce is naming is that it's not so much about, the couple. It's more about, hey, you maybe had some things that you didn't quite get worked through, or maybe kind of left some scars or some wounding, or just didn't feel complete. And so you are, going to have an encounter with this person so that you individually are going to be working on and through this in this relationship. And I just say that because I think it's easy to put a fairy tale lens on, meeting someone and going through lifetimes with a person and, oh, we're just, two star-crossed lovers destined to find each other time and time again. And who knows, maybe. But if we look at it from this perspective, I think it helps ground us a little bit and say, okay, even if that is so, there's still something, in other words, my individuality matters, and what it is that I'm here to learn as a result of these challenges, Edgar Cayce would see as kind of stepping stones on our path again to, self potential, self-realization. But it's not so dependent on getting it right with this particular person. And that's important because so often in these communities online and just different people and groups I've met, there's this, well, if it doesn't work out with this, destined person or soulmate in this life, then oh gosh, we're just going to have to meet and do it all over again next lifetime. But there's also this, well, what if you could do some of that work outside of that relationship still? Like, do you really need that other person? Does your work on yourself just stop because that relationship didn't work out in this particular life? Or there's a dependency. Like I can only do this, if you're here with me. And if we don't work out, that means we didn't get it right. Because I think, regardless if we're looking at reincarnation or not, when we look at growth in in a relationship, and how ourselves continue to be challenged and pushed and stretched sometimes beyond our comfort zone, is that sometimes, even though it's not very romantic to think this, a relationship coming to an end is actually what is necessary. That is the growth. That is the work. So I just kind of wanted to kind of um, tease that out a bit and kind of work that through. Okay, so that's a little bit about Edgar Casey and this sleeping prophet and giving people insights into past lives, and really kind of this American prophet of sorts, that was able to somehow tap into the collective unconscious, a Jungian term, and give people this idea, this reading, this seemingly historical account of their lives up to now, and how their ailments or how their relationships were entangled in that same narrative or same constellation. Okay, the next person that I want to bring up is Dr. Brian Weiss. Now, he is also an American psychiatrist who studied at Columbia University and Yale Medical School. He was a major skeptic to anything like this until one of his patients, I believe he was utilizing hypnotherapy to help work through some of the anxieties and traumas and various things that his patients were undergoing and experiencing. And this one particular patient started recalling things from a past life. And so, being the good, educated, trained expert that he was very skeptical and, kind of held this loosely. And then she started giving him information about himself and some of the personal details about his own family and his own history, I believe, regarding even the loss of a child that he had experienced in this life. So all of that to say, he started doing more research and has kind of converted to this idea of reincarnation being literal, being a fact. Like, this is something that occurs. This is available to people. Again, if they're in trance-like states, they can access this material. And it, again, remembering, kind of discovering this through in service to healing, in service to growth, self-understanding, deepening one's awareness around, why am I going through this right now? Or what other vantage point can I take to better understand what's going on here? So he's written, I think, several books, but I think his first book was called Many Lives, Many Masters, and was a New York Times bestseller, and lots of interesting information in there too. The final kind of expert that I'm bringing in is Dr. Jim Tucker. He's at the University of Virginia, and his research focuses a lot on children recalling past lives and just these stories of recalling memories and vivid accounts of things that they, in theory, should have no understanding, frame of reference for, any memory of. And so I think all of these things are very, very interesting. He has a lot of articles and books and various things out there too. So I wanted to bring this in because I know there's a lot of romantics that are looking for their soulmate, and that there is this belief and this idea that there is a person that I have gone through that is my long lost love, that it feels like I'm incomplete. It feels like not something, but someone is missing from my life. And you almost have that sense of just being able to put your finger on the person inside, but you can't quite put form on it, let's say. And then you have a moment like this where there's this love at first sight. You can imagine how profound an experience like that is. The thing that I also find fascinating is that I've known people that have had this phenomenon occur or happen to them not just once in their life. So several times having almost the love at first sight, but like a remembrance, which again, if we hold or subscribe to this idea of reincarnation, it would make sense if we've lived all these lives that we probably haven't been with just one person. So I've known people that it's like, yeah, I met this one from this and that one from that. And oh, we had a love triangle going on here. And now we're both, like all these very interesting stories. And I'm not here to say, yes, no, right, wrong. It's just very interesting. I think with anything, we have to allow for and really be with whatever feels true and resonates for you. That's fine. That's great. The one thing that I would say in kind of going through my own studies and my own journey that I have found very interesting on this topic is the Jungian psychology talks a lot about not taking things literally and more so things registering the psyche speaking in symbols. So I sometimes think that whether or not it's literal, it doesn't matter because it's the story that really speaks into the heart of the matter, that resonates deeply within the person. Maybe you have known this person before. Maybe you haven't, but regardless, it really feels like you have. And that's kind of where I'm wanting to take this series, is to kind of look at other possible explanations for this. But I'm very curious. What do you think about this idea with reincarnation? How does it sit with you? What makes you uncomfortable about it? What makes you a full-on believer? Have you had experiences of love at first sight and meeting someone and really feeling like, well, hello again? And the other thing I'm really, really, really interested in on this love at first sight topic is, gosh, did you even know that you can have love at first sight and it not work out with that person? So again, like our stories, our movies, all these things, they set us up because that happens to people thinking, oh my gosh, I've just met you. And there's all this resonance. And so therefore, and then they fill in the blank, and we're going to live happily ever after, only to go through, oh my gosh, like what's the point? We have this really profound meeting and encounter, and then nothing comes of it, or it's total mayhem and all these different things. So we're going to unpack even more of this as this series progresses. But I just thought this was a really interesting first pass at what is love at first sight, and could this maybe help us understand or explain some of these really profound experiences people have, and not just experience, but bonds. There's a real bond, and sometimes even what would seemingly look like an irrational fear, like, hey, I just met you, and yet I'm so afraid that, something really bad's going to happen, and we're not going to, you're going to die early, and we're not going to be able to, live a long, happy life together. And through some of these experiences and kind of observing and taking these things in, I've come to realize, like, there are stories in there, again, whether or not they're symbolic or literal, of, hey, maybe we came together, but we didn't quite get to see this thing through to completion, and some of that trauma can come up. So anyways, very interesting stuff. And I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about this and where you stand. All right, I'll see you in part 2 of this series. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you're interested in learning about ways to work with me, head over to my website, themoderndayromantic.com. From there, you'll be able to contact me and learn a bit more about the customized intensives and retreats I offer both individuals and couples. You'll also be able to support future podcast production via Patreon. There are several membership levels to choose from, including the Beating Hearts Club, which gives you access to exclusive content every month. Thanks so much for your support, and I'll see you next episode.